Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SA Accounting Academy. Here's a short clip on one of our previous webinars. I hope that you really do enjoy it.
A bit of a session for those of you that haven't been doing the legislation up to date, monthly updates. Just a quick 2-hour catch up. To me, it's on the two most important pieces of information we need to discuss for this year that's not COVID related. It seems like all we've done this year is talk about COVID. And I think we all need a bit of a break. I think we've got COVID fatigue. And there's the one conversation I think quite a few people have mentioned recently. So we are going to take a bit of a holiday from talking about occupational health and safety and talking about the Disaster Management Act. Just as for those of you that are interested and maybe you haven't been attending them, we do run the monthly compliance and legislation update, which I'll actually be taking next week. So we'll be doing the October session next week, and that's I'm up to do that one this month. So we will be chatting about, those sessions tend to be a bit more detailed in terms of what's happened in the last month or two. This one I just took an opportunity. It's a tech talk, so it's a little bit more relaxed, as my sessions usually are. And we are, I want to just sort of like have a little bit of an in-depth focus session. I did, for those of you that came to the Companies Act series, if you know about my Companies Act series, we did a series of 1-hour sessions on the Companies Act as a refresher from beginning to end. So we did 8 sessions, right from, how to calculate a PI score, the MOI, to directors' responsibilities, shareholders' responsibilities, through to role plays in terms of SIPC, business rescue and liquidation, accounting and insurance, all the way through. And we did chat very briefly about the Company Laws Amendment Act there. Today I've got a bit more time to go through what's happening in that space. But probably the most important piece of legislation this year, other than all the COVID information, is the Protection of Personal Information Act. POPI. My husband always says that I'm a Rachtika Macy, so I should actually say POPI. But I don't know, it just sounds better to say POPI. And this is an act that I think we need to just sit down and think about it, especially in light of, yes, changing circumstances, the fact that we are all working remotely, we are all passing information backwards and forwards. And do we actually understand what the implication is with this act to our businesses and our clients? Okay. And then just time dependent, we'll carry on from there. So please pop your questions and your comments in the question box. You've taken the time to join me this morning, and I always value that tremendously. So let's make the session yours. If you've got any questions about anything, I'm happy to go off script as well, and to chat and to work out any of your challenges or issues, because this is your time for the next 2 hours. Okay, so good morning. I hope you are warmer than where we are at the moment. We are sitting in a very chilly Midlands at the moment. I'm laughing and saying that the weather person at the moment doesn't know whether it is summer or winter or somewhere in between, which is, I suppose, what spring is about. But I really wish we would have a consistent. I was joking with Jeremiah and saying, it's not one of those days today where I feel like putting it on the camera. I'll put it on the camera for another session another day. But if you're wanting to know what I look like on the other side, that's a better view of me. And in the notes, you can see what I'm up to and what I'm about. Lots of different areas. As far as legislation is concerned, I've been working with the Companies Act since it was in draft format. I always laugh and think that I was very heavily pregnant with my son when it was being drafted and coming out, and I was busy training. And I'll never forget the very anxious expressions on the gentlemen's faces in the audience when I was busy presenting and, as I said, very heavily pregnant. And so as my son is getting older, I kind of equate his age with the development of the Companies Act. Okay, he's just turned 11, and that is rather daunting if you think about the evolvement of the Companies Act, but also rather concerning as well, because the Companies Act hasn't evolved as fast as it needs to. And back then, way back then, when we were trying to get our heads around what we still refer to as the new Companies Act, I remember speaking to attorneys and corporate and commercial advocates and legal practitioners, and the common consensus was it takes a piece of statute, especially a significant piece of statute, 5 to 10 years to bed down. In other words, 5 to 10 years for us to become comfortable and au fait with it and so used to it that it just becomes part of our normal language. And we're sitting 11 years later, and we still, I deal with, currently I'm drafting just off the top of my head right now. I've got 3 or 4 MRIs that I'm consulting and drafting. And people are still trying to get their heads around how to use this Companies Act, how to work with the benefits, the pros, the cons. And this is 11 years later. So we're far better at it than we were. There are qualified accountants and auditors that never knew an act that had ordinary shares in it. We had an official definition for ordinary shares for 10 years. So we are getting better at it, but at the same time, there are a lot of hiccups and problems with this act that need to be ironed out far sooner than they have been. And we're still not really getting the answers that we want about when this act is going to be sorted out. Okay, so I've been working with this act for a long time from a financial accountant perspective with many respected and incredibly wise legal practitioners. And it's an interesting space and an interesting tool to be with. At the same time, I've been involved in many national tours. I might have seen some of you in some of those national tours for both SACA and Facet and other institutes, legislation updates back in the days when we used to meet face-to-face. And, from the Consumer Protection Act through to the National Credit Act through to FIC and other pieces of legislation. And we've got to keep on building and seeing the way these acts network together. Okay. The one thing I'm definitely going to warn you about, although my focus this morning is on POPI and Companies Act, because I just think that that's where we have to sort of feel comfortable. Please, there is, and the biggest challenge I have as a facilitator of knowledge. Okay. I don't, I like to think of myself as somebody who encourages lifelong learning and encourages continual learning and a questioning mind, is that our lawmakers have been rather distracted this year. So there's been a real, POPI it's nice to have it out, but there are other pieces of legislation that we need to have going, but Parliament hasn't really been active in the legislative space, which means that we've been a bit stalled this year. So again, that's a bit challenging for us to move on from. Okay. I debated doing POPI or the Companies Act first. I thought POPI was a bit more of a fun to look at, and the Companies Act we'll get to in a sec. Again, if there's any questions or comments, please yell and we will work with it. I thought the Companies Act had a very long gestation period. POPI has been even longer. First signed in 2013. Okay. We then had the regulator appointed in 2018. Okay. And became fully effective in 2020. So, back when the Companies Act was going through its motions, it was 2008 to 2011. And this one beats it hands down. Okay. Definitely a long time coming, but we have to understand that this has most probably been one of the complicated acts to get up and running. And the reason it's a complicated act to get up and running is that this is kind of shutting the barn door.
I hope that you enjoyed that video. For more of our webinar videos, go to www.accountingacademy.co.za. Thank you and have a lovely day.